Nice to be here in Burlington on this day, although got bit by many mosquitoes outside, so I was exercising equanimity. And happy Father's Day. If you didn't know, today's Father's Day, and so if you like your father, you might want to call him. Is this anyone's first Sunday sit? Oh, great. Well, welcome. I'm Peter. I'm one of the senior residents at the center and the assistant teacher. Usually Soryu is our head teacher, but he's in California right now, teaching at our other center. So I'll be doing tonight's teaching. And the topic for today was around how to deal with negative feelings, how to deal with anger, fear, the quote-unquote negative feelings that many of us do not enjoy having or feeling or being with. I know a few years ago, I remember being when I first joined at the center up in Lowell, although back then I was in Johnson, Vermont. We were introducing a practice that dealt a lot with being with each other in emotional charged situations. How to practice relating to each other, staying mindful in emotionally charged circumstances. And I remember one of the residents at the time said, well, I just choose not to feel negative emotions. I don't think they're helpful. I don't think they're useful. Why feel negative emotions? Don't we practice so that we don't feel these negative emotions? Which is a very interesting perspective that I used to share maybe 10 years ago or so. Wouldn't it be great if we could just be reasonable, rational adults that understood that certain emotions are childish and immature and we just don't feel them. We just decide, I'm not going to feel those because those just lead to bad things, so I won't feel them. I believed that for a very long time as well. So I had a lot of sympathy and compassion and empathy for his position. And I think that exact same day we watched a video or a talk or something, made a group discussion of some sort, and afterwards he said, I changed my mind, I should learn how to experience negative emotions in a healthy way. One of the reasons we practice mindfulness meditation ostensibly is to learn how to increase our fulfillment, increase our happiness, increase our joy, be more sensitive to when we are happy and allowing ourselves to be happy. And it's also to help us reduce our suffering. There's so much unnecessary suffering that many of us go through in our lives, and it's often hard to see it in ourselves, but it's often easy to see it in people you love, where you go, well, you just didn't take this personally, you don't need to suffer right now. But this is often the case. It's really easy to see it in others, but really hard to see it in our own behavior, in our own ways of seeing. And so it's important to experience negative emotions because A, they happen. If you live in the world, a healthy nervous system will experience positive and negative emotions, feelings, joy or sadness, anger or gratitude. These are normal feelings that we can all learn to become more familiar with and to some extent train. And by training, we learn how to deal more skillfully with negative emotions so that they become opportunities to connect, to feel more alive, to be more connected rather than sources of conflict or sources of disconnection or shame or pain, suffering. The clearest example for me for this is, before I joined this training, this group, I did a lot of different trainings. I went to a lot of different groups. And as any normal modern adult, I had a lot of trauma and issues and stuff in me, and I still do. But had a lot back then. I was looking for teachers and trainings to help me with this. And the thing I was looking for in any of the facilitators or teachers or groups was, when things got messy, how do people handle this? Does everyone start freaking out, or is there like a subtle repression of like, we don't feel negative things here, don't bring that into our group? Or could I trust that I could bring my full self to this group or this teacher, and that they would work with me skillfully, relate with me from there? And as so often happens when we talk to friends or others who aren't very experienced or not in the right mindset for this, we bring up a problem, they say things like, "I'll be okay," or "just buck up," or "be a man," or I don't know if ladies could be a lady. Not very helpful ways of getting advice from other people. And what I was really looking for is it okay that I feel bad and you can help me, at the very least, not feel so bad about feeling bad? I've seen over the years in my own self and watching others that to the extent that we can be with the challenging things in ourselves is to the extent that we can be with challenging situations with others. When other people are activated, when other people are having a hard time. My experience is those automatic, "Hey, you'll do fine, don't worry about it." Those sort of pat phrases come up when I don't feel comfortable being with someone that's in a negative experience, a negative emotion that I don't feel personally equipped to even secondhand feel. And so, for all of us, we practice, at least on one hand, even if I don't want to experience negative feelings, to whatever extent that I can do that, I can better serve others and be with other people. That, say, if I ever have kids, or I ever have a lot of students, or I'm ever in charge of a community, the extent that I can be with people is the extent that I personally can handle being in the middle of anger, frustration, hatred, doubt, confusion, anxiety, depression. It's not like a magical formula we get enlightened and then these things just disappear from existence or something. And so, oftentimes for me, a big motivating factor is if I want to be a good teacher, if I want to be a good friend, if I want to be a good parent, if I want to be a good person that helps others, I need to be able to sit in the shit and find the exit myself. I can't just tell other people, this is the things you do to get to the exit. I personally am not going to go there with you, and I've never actually done it myself, but I think I read a book that can tell you how to get out. One of our supporters is this guy named Meng, who started mindfulness at Google, and is friends with Soryu, our teacher, and he wrote this nice book recently, maybe like 2 years ago now. And in the book he mentions how Soryu does interviews, which are our way of doing one-on-one trainings between the teacher and student. You get to do interviews with the teacher, where you get to either ask questions or demonstrate your practice, give reports of how your practice is going. And Meng asked Soryu about how do you do these, and Soryu said that when the student comes in, I become the student. So if they're feeling good, I'll try to feel good. If they're feeling terrible, I'll just join them in feeling terrible. And then I will practice myself to find a way out. How do I resolve the suffering in myself so that I'm in integrity when I suggest a technique to the student? Because if you're hypocritical, they just tell someone something that you haven't tested yourself. And so it's a very humbling moment when I heard that, or read that, and it's a very high standard that I'm still aspiring to hit myself as a teacher. So that's fun, but it still leaves the question of how do we deal with these negative emotions? Because there's a reason I don't feel them, because they're terrible, they're overwhelming. It seems like bad things happen when I do really go into them, so what do you do with these negative emotions? How do you deal with these things? Hopefully you've gotten some sense, or at least one reason of why it's a good reason to go into them, but now how do we deal with them? Before I say anything, of course, everyone is different, everyone's history is different, everyone's weaknesses and strengths are different, so you should pace yourself and do whatever is appropriate for your own circumstance, for your own experience in the moment. But I'll lay out one way of looking at it that's covers a lot of territory that you may or may not want to do all of right now. So, in the email I wrote, I talked about dealing with anger and I remember the other one was? I think it was sadness. No, fear. It was fear. Anger and fear. Anyone have an idea how these two are maybe related at all? The reason I picked these two in particular, out of all of the emotions I could. Yeah. I'd say they're related. One way of looking at anger would be, it's interesting that, especially in these sort of spiritual type communities, these mindful communities, these social justice, peaceful people groups, a lot of us don't know how to deal with anger. It's something I'm still working with. And so for a lot of us, we say, I don't want to be an angry person. That caused violence at some point in my family or in my groups, so I'm going to, if I feel angry, I'm not going to act on it. I'm going to try to just, for some of us the strategy is, I'm just going to put it over here, and then if you're going to sleep and watching movies or something, it's going to eventually dissipate and then it'll be fine. That's one strategy of dealing with anger. There are other strategies. The one way of looking at anger would be, in moments of anger, a few things typically happen in one's consciousness, one's awareness, that you can test yourself if you get angry. One would be attention gets fixated and tight. Right now, I can kind of experience the room is very broad, a lot of details, kind of sees maybe 70% of you at any time. But when I get angry, suddenly the world becomes really narrow, and it's usually focused on the thing that I'm angry at. It's often the focus object, whether I like it or not. So I get tight, attention gets narrow, breathing gets shallow, and there's often a sense of deep clarity, actually. Something is wrong. Something bad happened. Something is not okay. There's often actually a very deep clarity in anger of, I don't care about the weather, I don't care about what we're eating later, something is bad right now. Anger is very crystallizing in that way. And in fact, and for a lot of us, when we act on anger, it becomes violence because we just, there's something wrong, I need to do something about it. If we act on it, a lot of times it's shouting or punching or something not very skillful. Or we might repress it and then say, I'm a bad person, I shouldn't feel angry, I wish I knew the right way to deal with this situation so that no one got hurt and that everyone was happy and peaceful. And then we sometimes can internalize it into shame of violence towards ourselves. That I'm a bad person, I don't know, I'm not good enough to know how to deal with this, or I caused this to happen in the first place, it's my fault that this is happening. Another reaction could be disconnection. Just going to dissociate or numb out, or I'm not going to be in this interaction, I'm not going to be in this relationship, I'm not going to be in this situation. Disconnect, separate. Which for a lot of us feels like isn't that like kind of nice? Isn't that the least violent action? But in fact, oftentimes it is violence towards the relationship. Saying, I've given up. I'm not gonna put any attention. I'm not gonna be present in this relationship anymore. I'm gonna disconnect. But these are these three ways that we can often habitually react to situations. But in fact, anger oftentimes is covering over deeper feelings and emotions. So anger comes up, we can notice it physiologically in our awareness, something shifts. And you can sense that, okay. Something changed, I'm angry. Seems like it's anger. My attention's like fixated, I'm tight, there's a deep clarity that something bad happened or something needs to happen or something's wrong. Okay, I'm angry. Instead of going to the next step, which a lot of us do, which is lashing out or lashing in or just cutting off the connection, next step would be, what's going on? What's the story that's happening? Why am I angry? What got violated? What's going on here? And in fact, underneath the surface level reaction, a lot of times, underneath the clarity, there's now oftentimes fear. Oftentimes there's fear. Something I really care about is in danger. Something I really care about, it's really important, is now threatened. Which is why I think a lot of times we can be very peaceful and kind of nice to strangers and friends, but suddenly when we're family, and we might get triggered and suddenly I'm like the most angry, hateful person that I never am in any other situation. And then afterwards I go, where did that come from? These are the people I care about the most. And somehow I say the nastiest things with family members. It's very strange. Why does that happen? And in fact, there's fear and there's deep care because something I really care about is threatened and I don't know what to do. I don't know what the solution is, and this thing being hurt is not okay. If it's a stranger on the street who says something to you like your pants are too big or something, some comment a stranger makes, it wouldn't really matter. You just go, okay, that guy's weird. But if a really deep close friend, a really close family member says something to me, suddenly it's a huge deal. Suddenly it activates a lot of things. Because I care. I care a lot more about the relationship, I care a lot about this person's opinion of me, I care a lot about how they see me. I respect and value their insight into who I am in a way that I might not care about, say, an insect, like a mosquito biting me 10 times today. I don't harbor much of a grudge to the mosquitoes. Okay, well, you don't have consciousness, you don't have a relationship to me, you're just a mosquito. Whatever. So if we investigate closely, we notice, okay, there's actually deep care, and there's fear. And then it's almost like a joke. It's like I care so much right now, and how I respond is lashing out, or disconnecting, or making myself wrong somehow, which is the complete opposite of care. It's the thing that's the least likely to produce the outcome that I would want in that moment, which is connection, reassurance, wanting what I care about to be okay. But it's important to question the story, and it's important to question how am I interpreting what's going on right now, because a lot of times when we're reacting, we're actually not matching the reality of what's actually happening. That we're connecting back to memories and past instances, and now mapping, projecting that onto our current situation and reacting in that way. So if someone says, hey, the dishes are out in the kitchen, and then I could react and say, well, I cleaned all my dishes. I don't know who didn't clean their dishes. I cleaned my dishes. I don't know what's going on. Why are you telling me about that? It's not my fault. And they go, I was just commenting. I wasn't saying that you did a bad job. I was just saying there's dishes in the kitchen. It's cool. I appreciate you having cleaned your dishes. And so a lot of times the hook is some sort of historical memory that we're really sensitive to, that's maybe unresolved. And there's a deep vulnerability in this. Feeling this sort of helpless place where I'm stuck between really caring about something and being scared that I don't know what to do about it can sometimes feel very helpless and very vulnerable. And a lot of times our egos do not want to feel out of control, do not want to feel helpless, do not want to feel like it doesn't have a way to respond. But in fact, a lot of times, if we really trust and test the hypothesis that all the spiritual traditions, all the religious traditions teach us, even the humanist traditions teach us, that all people are, at least most people are sane and inherently good, inherently godlike, inherently have Buddha nature, inherently care, that everyone wants to be happy, no one intentionally wants to really cause other people harm or pain. Everyone thinks that what they're doing is the best that they can do. Then in fact being vulnerable and revealing in the right situations, with the right partners, in a trusting relationship, might actually be the correct move, rather than our normal patterns of disconnecting or lashing out or shaming ourselves. I know there was one resident here who was one of my closest friends, who when he came, we got in fights almost every week. Every single week probably. We were fighting, sometimes cussing each other out, and it was a very hard week and month, year, and wasn't what I expected. I thought, oh, one of my closest friends is coming, this is going to be so great. Can't wait. And then it turned out we were fighting like every single week, it felt like. And I remember one time I got so worked up, I couldn't help it, and I just kind of lashed out at him. I just stopped repressing and just kind of went at him and just sort of said some mean things. And then I started crying immediately afterwards, because I was like, this is not what I want. I don't want to lash out at my closest friend. I don't want to be a person that lashes out to my closest friend. And I was so scared about what would happen. What are the consequences now? Did I just ruin this friendship? Am I a terrible person? What's going to happen right now? And it completely resolved the entire situation. Like, because we're friends. And he saw that I was really impacted, and immediately he was like, all I care about now is like, how are you doing? I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on, but what's happened? Now, of course, for a lot of us, we were either in families or in relationships or groups where that's not the response that happened. Showing vulnerability, showing weakness might have been met with worst case scenario, violence or ridicule or mocking or sarcasm or whatever, and that's not nice, that's not good. But for a lot of us, the habitual reactions the lessons we learned from those few instances, often in early childhood, then become our default norm, that we never get to choose a different option. We never get the chance to practice a different way, even with people that are trustworthy, even with people that do care, even with people that won't react in that way. And so we use mindfulness, we use meditation practice to learn how do we stay present when we get charged, when things get activated. Can I stay present? Which means, can I stay in the present moment, not go back into memories and habitual past patterns and just let that go on autopilot, but actually sense in our awareness, in our body, in the thoughts we're having, what's going on right now. Okay, I'm getting tight, my face is getting hot, there's a voice yelling that something's bad. Okay, I'm sensing there's anger. Okay, how am I interpreting this? What's the story that's going on? What memories are getting linked? What's going on here? Unpacking the story to realize somehow something I deeply, deeply care about and cherish is feeling threatened, feeling attacked. My boundary is getting pushed into. A request was made of me that's too much. Attention wasn't given to me when I needed attention, whatever it is. There's a story, there's an interpretation of what just happened. And then letting yourself be vulnerable, if you can sort of objectively think, is this person, is this group, is this situation feel safe enough to test something else out? Do I want to be the person that lives in habitual reactions my entire life and never test it, or do I want to try testing it sometimes and learn new, better, mature ways of responding if I choose to do so when it feels appropriate? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of situation, people does it seem like I'm in? And then actually feeling the deeper feelings of grief, of sadness, of care, of fear, helplessness, and then what's the appropriate action from here? Having felt it fully, gone to the core emotions, unpacked the story, chosen correctly or appropriately if I want to investigate this right now or not. What's the action to do here? Having gained the insight, a lot of times there's now an action step, which could be as simple as, I'm really scared right now, saying I'm really scared right now, saying I'm afraid I'm about to lose you, I feel like I needed attention and you didn't see that and it really hurt. I feel like you made a request of me that I feel like I have to fulfill even though I feel overloaded and I can't do that right now. So I got angry and upset that you asked that of me. Whatever that action step is. Of course, this is a lot. Like I said at the beginning, this is a lot of ground. And in different moments, we may only be able to do a slice of it. Sometimes it might not feel safe to do any of it, which is why we practice meditation so much. First step of how can I even just be with my present embodied experience, sense what's happening in my awareness, in my mind, in my body, be aware of the emotions that are coming up in the first place. And the more and more we can do this, the less and less these emotions have control over us, less and less it feels like I'm being the victim, that the world and others are just causing me to feel things that I have to numb out because it's overwhelming. And the more and more we can feel empowered, the more and more we can use these moments of anxiety or anger or sadness as actually opportunities for deeper connection and ultimately be able to teach other people that we can enter these hard places together and transform what was originally a very negative experience into a really beautiful, connecting, transformative, good experience. You know, years ago when I first joined the monastery or the academy, I would often get triggered a lot at seeing other leaders correcting other residents. It was often never actually the feedback coming to me. I saw others giving feedback to others, and I didn't like how it was happening. And I would get triggered and upset about it. And I remember talking to someone else about it, and they said, you know, you can try it at least as step one, that there's this sort of loop that happens of one person's angry, comes out, then the other person receives it, and then they get understandably angry, and it just creates this negative feedback loop. Who in the world, who in this community, who in the group, who in our society will be the first one to not just react and actually examine what's really going on here, what's the appropriate action, rather than meeting hatred with hatred, who's going to actually end that cycle, break that cycle, regardless of whether or not it's justified or fair or whatever. You know, it sucks to be in that victim mentality of I can only react anyway. So we can use this practice to empower ourselves to be active agents, where whatever comes to us can be opportunities to experience, to embody, to enlighten, and to master every situation, every emotion, every person, and so then we can truly be with every experience with equanimity. To greet every situation, greet every person, greet every moment with full awareness, full presence, not holding back, not only letting in half of what seems okay, but actually not. Another way to put it would be no longer at war with reality, no longer at negotiating with God what's an acceptable experience to have and what's not an acceptable experience to have. Because the fact of the matter is, we're already feeling emotions, we're already having this experience right now. And any, as the original definition of sin was, is disconnecting from the reality we're in right now. So, we can practice together to deepen our awareness so that we can build the capacity and the muscle to be with all of our experiences. So we'll do 2 guided periods now. We'll have a short break in the middle. And then if any time anyone wants to use the bathroom, needs to stretch, feel free to do that too. I'll offer some basic guidance. If you have a technique or meditation or prayer or something that you would rather do, then feel free to do that. But I'll offer some basic instruction and practices if you want to follow along. Or be creative and make it your own, however feels appropriate. So to start, get in a good posture where uplifted body, straight spine, letting the weight in your body sink down into your chair or the floor. Getting in good posture, we do meditation with our bodies. Take a deep breath and let yourself just feel the sensation of breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Let yourself breathe naturally at your own pace for your own body, noticing the felt sense of what it's like to breathe. So for this period, the next 20 minutes or so, we'll focus on our breath, noticing when we're inhaling that we're inhaling, notice when we're exhaling, allowing ourselves to feel that experience, feel the felt sense of what the breath feels like. If you get distracted, you can gently remind yourself in a neutral or pleasant tone in your own minds, come back to focusing on your breath, letting go of the past, letting go of needing to plan for the future. I'll ring the bell at the start of session. If you have any distractions, if you notice thoughts, maybe mosquito bites, anything else coming up, you just let that be in the background. And place your attention gently on your breath, noticing the felt sense of breathing. If you feel particularly distracted and this is really challenging, you could use labeling. In your own mind, labeling the in-breath in, labeling the out-breath out. Just a supportive aid to use your mind to help you concentrate if that feels helpful. remember, if you find yourself distracted, the act of bringing your attention back to your breathing or whatever your focus object is the practice of developing concentration, putting your attention on the object that you choose to focus on. So rather than looking at that as a failure, criticizing or judging yourself, you can congratulate and celebrate yourself for being aware that you got distracted, and thank yourself, or thank you for reminding me, letting me know I got distracted. Okay, I'm going to bring myself back to my breath. This is already really easy and seems pretty easy for you, that's great too. Let yourself breathe through your whole body, seeing if you could spread the awareness of the breath through more and more of your body. You're all doing a great job. Notice yourself again getting sleepy or distracted, unsure, you can always check in with your posture as well, seeing if this is upright, relaxed, grounded posture. Oftentimes we think of mindfulness as something we only do with our minds, but in fact our bodies have a huge impact on our focus and awareness. So you can always go back to your posture and notice, is there anything that needs to be adjusted slightly? Being creative and playful with it. Everybody has a different body, so you will be your own gauge on what's working for you and what might not be working. moment, I'll ring the bell. We'll have a short 5-minute break. Stay in silence. Feel free to use the bathroom or get water or stretch. And if you wish and if you can, try to keep your attention on your breath as you move and go about other activities. So before we go into our next exercise, just take a few moments to resettle and do our breathing exercise again. Cultivate some concentration and presence. So this next guidance will do for about 20 or 25 minutes. You can choose to follow along if you wish, or stay with the breathing exercise, or do another technique if you wish, but I'll lead us in the guidance around exploring this topic of anger and fear. So if it comes to you, try to bring into your memory, into your mind, perhaps a recent time that you felt angry or upset, maybe felt shame, or had a moment of disconnection where you disconnected from a group or a relationship. See if you can come up with an example, perhaps not the most intense or worst instance, but just something that maybe happened recently that feels manageable right now, isn't too overwhelming. While you let that memory, let that experience come up in your awareness, try to keep staying in the present, having awareness of your breath, having awareness of your body. If you want, you can expand out and include a sense of sounds in the room, and sense of your physical body touching the floor, or feeling the temperature, but having some anchor and grounding in what's happening right now. And as you replay this situation, this encounter, this meeting, this event, notice any changes in your body, any changes in your awareness. Can you detect any sign of anger or fear or shame or disconnection, or maybe care and worry or grief coming up? If so, how do you know that? Maybe you feel a sense of heaviness in your body, maybe you feel heat on your face, maybe you notice a change in your breathing. Then you can ask yourself, what really matters to me right now? In this memory, in this encounter, in this meeting, what was really important? Why does this matter to me so much? What am I scared of? What am I worried about? What am I concerned about? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's my personal safety. Maybe it's a fear of being humiliated or embarrassed. Maybe it's feeling inadequate, or whatever it is. In this experience, what was it that I was worried about or cared about? And again, let yourself feel whatever that is. So far we've used our breathing technique to have an anchor in the present moment experience. And then bringing to mind a memory or experience, perhaps recently, that's not too overwhelming, of a time that you felt angry or ashamed or disconnected or scared, helpless, or maybe even a sense of deep caring. Checking and seeing what changes happen in my body, in my experience, in my awareness, signal and let me know that I'm having this emotional charge. And then questioning the story, the interpretation. How am I perceiving this situation? What's the story I'm making about myself, or the person, or the world in this situation? And noticing what impact that has on our body, on our minds, what feelings might come up. Asking ourselves, what is it that I'm afraid of? Will get hurt? What am I afraid of? What am I concerned about? Is being threatened? If you have a felt sense of the emotion, feel free to send care, compassion to yourself, maybe putting a hand on your heart, or just saying nice phrases, soft tone in your mind. It's okay. I'll be okay. I'm safe. See if you touch into the deeper sense of care, deeper sense of concern, how much you care about yourself, about not being injured or hurt, or you care about the relationship and worried about being broken, or concern about someone else and worry about how they're feeling or if they might get hurt. See if you can touch into the deeper sense of compassion and love and care, fueling the anger or grief. I'm doing these steps kind of fast, so feel free to move through them at your own pace, and you can cycle through them a few times. this far, see if you can contemplate a different response, a different action than maybe the one you took. Or maybe even the action you could take now, if it's still unresolved. From this place of care or concern, what would be the appropriate action? Really not knowing the answer, but asking this as a genuine inquiry. Answer might be that you actually did the best that you could, and that was fine. It might be that you actually have to be strict or harsh with someone. Or it might be revealing a vulnerability or feeling hurt or sad, or revealing something about yourself. Feels like you've either gotten as far as you can or you've found an action. You can decide if you want to do that action after the sit, or if it feels like you couldn't get past any stage, that's completely fine. Don't need to force anything to happen. You can always have the freedom to choose a different situation, different event. Go back to your breathing technique. Letting yourself cultivate awareness to give you more access and clarity into our emotional state. this is particularly challenging for you, you can always go back to sending compassion to yourself, letting your body relax, feeling into your heart, and telling yourself that you're safe, that you're fine. Be in the present moment. Or if you wish to continue exploring either this one memory or several memories, feel free to continue questioning the story that's, what am I believing or thinking of this event? What is it that I really care about in this situation? What feels like it's in danger? Noticing if there's a sense of fear, of not knowing how or if we can protect this cherished object. And then touching into the care, the love, concern of how much this relationship matters to me, how much my own safety or belonging matters to me. Noticing how much I care about this object. And then from that place of care and concern, is there any other actions that seem appropriate or good to do? Perhaps you can see the anger, shame, disconnection. When we're mindful is actually a choice that we're making. It's a reaction, habitual reaction, automatic reaction. We unconsciously are choosing to do. And if we can be mindful in the moment, then we can choose to respond in a different way. It's actually in alignment with the care, the concern, the love that we're feeling in that moment. And we're all human, so that might not always be available in the moment, but we can also always review our past behaviors, our past interactions, and bring mindfulness to that memory and see if there's an insight and different action, a different attitude, different orientation I can choose. And you can get the big joke that in those times that I care the most, my unconscious ego is choosing the action that would not give me what I actually want in that moment. So laugh at toddler, or like an animal choosing the wrong tool for the job. So it's cute, but that's not the right tool. This is the right tool. We just have a few minutes left, so if you wish, you can sort of gently bring yourself out of the memories and more back into the room. Noticing the feel of the air on your skin, your feet or legs on the floor, feeling your chair, noticing the sounds in the room. Nice job, everyone. So this brings us into more of an interactive discussion part of the evening. So the next 25 minutes or so, this is a time for anyone to ask questions, give reports, comments either about the talk or meditations or anything going on in your life practice or life. Time to share and see what arises. Or any insights. Just.
It's been a challenging day. And it's filled with frustration. So what you would call anger, I would put in the category of frustration. Am I angry with the situation I'm in, the landlady coming in and painting, creating a toxic environment, just when I had thought there was a way to sleep. Now the environment is toxic and I'm not angry with her, it's just frustration, like no. And then the neighbor has visitors. Many visitors, and there's loudness. And I go to a meditation at the beginning of the day after sleeping fairly well and for the first time in a very long time thinking this is okay. And then one frustration after another piles on top of another and I just like, okay. And I'll just go to the workshop and work and create something. And then there's more frustration in the creative process there. Things go wrong. I think, it was okay yesterday and now it's not okay. It's like, whoa, there's too much. I smell God, what is going on? And I am okay with all of that because I had rested for the first time. And yet, knowing the fear around the corner that the rest would be circumvented by all of this, and then the reaction would come, the sense of it. So the fear is that fear is there's no control, I suppose, or that there's no sense of finding a way to feel safe or belong or be connected to another or even a group. There is no security and when rest comes, it is taken. So what do you do with that? And I'm sitting with it now. And the only other response that I come up with is to pray. What would it take to have something, a change in all of this? Will I go back to many people all around me making sounds and a toxic environment and running away to where there's nowhere to go? And so it feels like perfect for your meditation. And so perhaps the response would be to sit again as well as to pray.
Thanks for sharing. I noticed the primary feeling for me when I was hearing that was actually grief. Almost feeling like finally having like refuge or sanctuary, and then it's taken from me. And grieving that loss or that heartache. Losing what I thought I had finally. Seems like being with that is challenging. It reminds me of, I once lived somewhere where I got free housing for doing this job, and I had to quit or else get fired. So I quit, and I thought it was unjustified and not fair, and there was a lot of anger at them. There was a lot of self-shame of I probably, if I was smarter, could have done something so this didn't happen. And primarily I just didn't want to feel it. just didn't want to. Like, this isn't fair. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I don't want to feel this. I didn't really cause this. This was just like injustice in the universe. And it took me a few hours and a few days of self-care, really. There was a lot of confusion too, because I didn't know where I was going to live next. And there's a lot of fear and worry about that as well. And I didn't have much of a practice. I didn't have any real practice back then. I meditated maybe once a month. And so my coping mechanism was I want to buy cigarettes.
No.
I never really smoked before. I never smoked before then. And I was like, well, on television, whenever someone's stressed, they smoke cigarettes. So maybe this will work.
No.
I don't know if it did or not, but I don't think it did. But at some point, I just had to grieve and come to terms with, oh, this is the situation I'm in now. Regardless of whether it's fair or not fair, or what I should have done, or whether they should have not done that, or whatever. This is just my life now. What am I going to do now? After having grieved about it and still feeling kind of messed up and unhappy about the whole situation. It turned out to work out in my case. I ended up finding a good place. It took a few months, really like a year for it to really feel like home, but it eventually worked out to be really good for me. But I really didn't know in that moment. It felt like I was a failure, felt like the universe was unfair, felt like I might not have a home, or have a worse home. And really did not. And like you said, I prayed, I hoped, grieved a lot, smoked some cigarettes, and got through eventually. I think sort of this common trope these days about mindfulness as like being sold as a way to just pacify consumers and just be happy drone workers. And if you're mindful, then you just won't complain, you'll be fine with everything. Pacifist and whatever. It's definitely not what we're doing here, at least in this group. It's not the mindfulness that we're espousing or trying to practice. So sometimes situations are bad, and it's appropriate that we feel bad. And if we live in a sick society, it's normal if a lot of us get sick. But we can rely on our practice so that we have some way of coming to terms with even the unjust things in our life. And what do I, first, can I just grieve and feel what I'm feeling? And second, can I move on? Next thing, and not rely on tobacco as a coping mechanism. I feel you sort of in the midst of that process and journey, appropriately taking each step. Really not knowing what might happen, but still doing that journey. It's really nice to hear. I hope that matches your experience, and I want to put that on you if it's not.
Yeah, it does, but mostly the shame. That what have I avoided doing that might have put me in a better place. But I understand it. Yeah. It's just a matter of, it's like what I said was it's so over the top that it feels like it's pushing me to take some sort of leap. You know, like, okay, get rid of more. It's like things falling apart all around. And, okay. I don't think I'm really supposed to die. It's just to, let go. But anger, that's so.
Thanks for sharing, Jesse. Seems very vulnerable space. Anyone else want to share?
I was surprised to notice that when you had us ask more deeply into what it was that we were feeling in that moment, that what came up was not what I expected or thought or would have said was the thing. And I noticed that trend, that it's often something I don't expect. It's very humbling to experience that over and over again. Be reminded of how much I still have to find out in many ways. Especially in those moments of more intense emotion.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to, was there any sense of underlying care or concern, compassion, feeling?
Yeah. Like it started as frustration, and it was a lot of care and compassion for myself.
Right.
And I wasn't meeting that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of times when I'm most certain about something, especially a feeling, it turns out to, I don't think always, but often not be fully correct. And it's weird because often when I do find it, there's a part of me that recognizes it and goes, oh, this again? I've already done this, I know this. And somehow it's still surprising, it's still, it's almost like a thief getting into my house, and like, I know the thief, I've had tea with the thief, now I'm on a first name basis. Somehow he still finds ways to get into the house, and I lock the doors, close the windows. But I think secretly, unconsciously, I'm actually sleepwalking and I'm opening the window. I'm saying, hey, come in. Come on in. I know the awake Peter doesn't like you being in the house. I like you being in the house. So,
Yeah.
it's funny that keeps happening. Also, I just wanted to mention also, sometimes, again, I want to stress that sometimes it's appropriate to take hard actions. If someone's angry at me, it makes sense for us to feel angry back. And I feel like in mindful spiritual communities, it's taken as like a bad experience that I'm supposed to eradicate all sense of ever getting upset or something. But then there's this deeper inquiry of what am I protecting? What's the real concern here? What's the need that's not getting met, or the fear that what might happen? So in that way, a lot of what I'm saying actually, I'm taking a lot of it from a tradition called Mando Zen that I practiced in for a few years. And, the founder thus says, our angst is our liberation. So anytime we have this angst, we can go into it and purify it, enlighten it, and then become more awakened, more clear, more present. Seeing that old thief or the new thief is a great, it's motivating to find him or her, and it's also very enlightening every time I do. So, it can almost be like a game. Okay, where is he now? Which room is he? Is he the same one, or is it someone else? What am I worried he's going to take or something? I actually remember one very clear example when I did this way back when, it was like the first few months of being at the center, and I think the residents, the apprentices would enjoy this more than the guests, but maybe you'll like it too. I remember several of the people in the community had invited me, asked me to lead a practice called circling or social meditation or just whatever stuff I knew. Part of me was resistant, I didn't want to. I was like, I came here to learn, I didn't come here to teach things I'm very bad at. So I was resisting for a few weeks. But finally, I agreed, and he kept asking me, so I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'm not very good at this, I don't know what I'm doing. But fine, I'll do it. And then the day of the supposed workshop or whatever that I was supposed to lead, I was informed, you're not teaching it, Peter. Someone else is going to do some other different workshop that's related but different. And I was really upset. I was like, I didn't want to teach this in the first place. I got all set up, I prepared material, I spent a lot of time organizing this, and then I can't do it. And I was really upset by this. More upset than made sense. And then I remember going to a corner somewhere. Well, in Johnson, we used to live in Johnson, we had these yurts that we'd slept in, freezing in the wintertime, but really nice. So I went to my yurt and sat on the steps and sort of did this practice of like, why am I upset? What's the story I'm telling? What am I grieving? What is it I really care about? Why is this impacting me so hard? And when I really boiled it down to, and memory is very not trustworthy, and this could be distorted over the years, because memory is really faulty. But what I remember thinking was, oh, I think Soryu thinks I'm not trustworthy and will do a really bad job and doesn't trust me to lead this. Was actually the deepest, I think, layer. even though I hadn't talked to him, I got this communication from someone else, and had zero interaction with Soryu about this whole thing. But for me, it was like, oh, the person I respect the most in this group thinks I'm no good. It was really why I was upset. And then I started laughing. I don't exactly remember why, but something about the absurdity of because I knew for a fact Soryu was very not involved in any of the decision making in this particular instance. So, Buddy might disagree. But just most comedy is just the defying of expectations or jarring of two different things. So, just on one hand, I knew Soryu wasn't actually that involved in this at all, and that I was mainly reacting because I was worried that he thought I was a bad person. It was just really funny to me, and then I was fine because I was like, oh, that's just not true. So, and I didn't want to leave this anyway, so I got what I wanted. Well, it was a big deal. And then fortunately, a few weeks later, I led the workshop and I went fine until circling was born. So that was a fun experience. Huh. That clock is very wrong. Yeah. Interesting. One last comment to report before we go into announcements?
Well, I just was contemplating the whole notion that emotions are negative, bad, to be avoided at all costs. And I've lived a long time and I've experienced a great many different emotions. I don't think it's useful to categorize them in that way, because you can have, I mean, I was able to come up with an angry incident, and, you know, it's, the anger was there, but the reaction could have been, you know, you never do what you say you're going to do. You know, it was this day and this day and this day that you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you never do this, and or I could say, you know, you said you were going to do that and you didn't, and I felt very disrespected. So done. But so to me, it's the consequence of the emotion or what it spurs you to do. I don't think anger is wrong if you are moved to right some wrong that's been done. I think in that sense it could be considered certainly not pleasant, but not negative, and something that needs to be avoided. And we can't avoid our emotions anyway, so.
That's perfect. I'm really happy you said that, because, yeah. Last week's talk, I think it was last week, was not good, not bad. That labeling anything ends up creating polarity, which isn't helpful. And, but yes, I guess what I'm saying is most of us label certain emotions as negative and then don't know how to work with negative emotions. But negative is in quotes here. So in reality, emotions can just be like any of our senses, seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking. So anger could just be like as one of my teachers said, you could just look at anger as a big, bright red color. No one freaks out when they see a big, bright red color, but for some of us that aren't as mature as you, when we feel a big, bright red anger, we freak out. It might take some practice and experience to get to the point where we can just get the information of what the emotion is telling us, and then in a mature way, state what we need or want, or whatever it is, and no big deal. So thank you for clarifying that. I think in my language, I was sort of playing on both sides of how most people interpret the emotions, and also another more skillful way, as you pointed out, of just seeing it as data, as information, as an experience that doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, and if we can bring presence and equanimity to that experience, then we can act skillfully and more accurately through experience. So, really happy you pointed that out.